It's finally here, the upgraded iPad mini, the iPad mini 7. After waiting for more than 3 years, we now finally have the update. And can the hardcore iPad mini fanbase be rejoiced with this upgrade compared to the iPad mini 6? Or are the updates just too small? Let's have a closer look together. So before we start, it's important to know that Apple doesn't actually call this the iPad mini 7, they call this the iPad A17 Pro, and obviously this has to do with the A17 Pro chip that's now inside this device, and we're gonna talk more about that later on in the video. But first I'd like to start about the design. So design compared to the iPad mini 6, there are no major design differences. Some of the main differences are the fact that you now have iPad mini engraved on the device itself, where on the previous iPad mini 6 it was just iPad. Also, the SIM tray has been removed on all the models, so that means that you can only use eSIM on the cellular iPad mini 7. Talking about the other things that are more or less the same, we still have Touch ID on top, we have the power, and we have the volume buttons on top as well. The camera is still on top in a vertical position, so we don't have the horizontal camera design that we have on the newer iPad models. And compared to the iPad mini 6, we now get two new colors, and that is a lighter purple and a blue, which are replacing a different purple and pink on the iPad mini 6. Let's talk about the display, and actually I am a bit disappointed with the updates we get with regards to the display this year. We still have a 8.3 inch liquid retina display that provides 500 nits of brightness. Also, we still have these massive bezels on the side, and I believe this was actually a great opportunity for Apple to maybe make the bezels smaller on this year's iPad mini. You already see it on the iPhone 16 Pro, how amazingly thin the bezels can be. Would have been great to have a bit more screen estate on the new iPad mini 7. Still no promotion. We still have a 60 Hz display, and I believe this is actually like not okay in 2024. But there is one positive note, and that is that the jelly scroll issue has been fixed on the iPad mini 7. A lot of users that have the iPad mini 6 had the annoying jelly scroll issue, which made their device unusable in some cases. So luckily this has been fixed on the iPad mini 7. Next, the performance of this device is actually pretty significant. As mentioned in the intro, we now get the A17 Pro compared to the A15 Pro on the iPad mini 6. It has a 3nm architecture compared to the 5 from the previous generation iPad mini. Maybe one of the biggest jumps is that we now get 8 gigs of memory compared to 4 gigs on the iPad mini 6. And as mentioned, it comes with the A17 Pro, which means it's ready to support Apple Intelligence, which I think is one of the main features of this iPad mini to make it future-proof. Then if we go towards photography, which I think is not great for an iPad mini or an iPad in general, not a lot has changed compared to the iPad mini 6. We now have Smart HDR4 compared to Smart HDR3 on the iPad mini 6, which basically results in better and sharper images and more vivid colors and tones. A nice little upgrade, but not significant, is that we now have a new True Tone flash, which allows you to identify documents using AI and thus make more accurate scans. It's nice to have, but nothing game-changing. Next, let's talk about the connectivity and ports here. There are some changes to Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and the port. We now get Wi-Fi 6E compared to Wi-Fi 6 on the iPad mini 6, and Wi-Fi 6E basically adds a faster lane for faster wireless speeds and lower latency, and we now get Bluetooth 5.3 compared to 5.0 on the iPad mini 6. And Bluetooth 5.3 doesn't have any impact on the range or speed of Bluetooth, but instead adds some nice features that reduce the latency and the power consumption when using Bluetooth. And lastly, the USB-C port has been upgraded to USB 3.1 Gen 2, delivering up to 10 gigabytes of speed. And now let's talk about Apple Pencils. So we now get Apple Pencil Pro support on the new iPad mini 7. I think this is great for creatives. So that means that we now have amazing features like the squeeze feature, barrel roll, haptic feedback, pencil hoover, and double tap to quickly open a menu. And lastly, let's talk about the price and the storage. So the new iPad mini 7 starts at $499 and now finally has a base storage of 128 gigabytes compared to the iPad mini 6 when it was introduced at the same price with only 64 gigabytes of storage. So yeah, that's a very welcoming upgrade. For an additional $100, you can get 256 gigabytes of storage, which I think is the right amount of storage to get for the iPad mini 7. And if you want to get the max amount of storage, which is 512 gigabytes, you have to put down $799 US. So to conclude, is the iPad mini 7 worth the upgrade? Is it worth the upgrade from an iPad mini 6 to an iPad mini 7? In my opinion, yes. And this has mostly to do with the fact that the iPad mini 7 is more future-proof. It now supports Apple Intelligence, Wi-Fi 6E, Bluetooth 5.3, and that it starts with 128 gigs of storage. This is okay, but I recommend you to get 256 gigabytes of storage. And maybe also nice is the fact that the jelly scroll issue has been fixed. So yes, in my opinion, it's worth the upgrade. However, there are some things that I am really missing on this device. And for starters, that is like Face ID would be great to have Face ID instead of Touch ID. ProMotion. So I think it's time that Apple puts 120 Hz displays on all their iPads, also the iPad mini. Also, I would love to see smaller bezels on an iPad mini for more screen estate. I mean, the device is already so small, so it would be great if we just have more screen to work on. And what would be nice if the camera would go from a vertical orientation to a horizontal orientation. It's just the direction in which all the iPads are going right now. So it would have been definitely great to have seen that on the iPad mini 7. So what do you think about the iPad mini 7? Do you think it's worth the upgrade from the iPad mini 6? Are you really not a fan of the iPad mini overall? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one, guys. Peace.